Please hit the like, subscribe and bell notification so you don't miss out on the exciting videos planned for the coming summer.
G'day guys, back trout fishing today. On the hunt for sea run brown trout. And I think I found one here on this road. As you can see, it's right beside the main highway. I think I found a good fish. So I set up, we'll go down and try and nail them. Little size 16 pheasant tail, standard, unless the fish are rising. I'll go show you this fish and see if you can spot him yourself.
Can you spot the ghostly silhouette of a large sea-run brown trout lying somewhere in the centre of the screen? It's a real challenge, isn't it, to spot these fish? The trout, which is lying just left of and slightly above centre of screen, rises to intercept the nymph. However, on setting the hook, no resistance is felt. Either the trout has missed a nymph as it went for it, or the hook has passed harmlessly out through its mouth as it went to strike. Either way, I'm fully confident now that this fish is going to be hooked on the size 16 pheasant tail. It felt no resistance, and there's no reason for it not to have another swipe at the fly as it passes by. So I continue to plumb the depths with a little fly. After battling the fierce northwest wind for another minute or so, no further reaction from the fish. A nearby whitebaiter comes down the river to ask me if I'd spotted anything.
There's a good one out here.
What happens here is a small silvery takes my nymph and comes flying out of the water when I go to recast. You just see it here in a slow motion. A wee silvery object comes flying past and onto the rocks behind me. A silvery is a small forage fish that's very popular with sea-run brown trout during the spring and early summer months here in New Zealand. I search frantically on the bank for the small fish, just to rescue it really and throw it back in the water.
Got one.
Second thoughts, let's have a look and see what happens to this silvery reef out in front of the brown trout. Just out of interest really, I didn't think there was any chance of hooking it with the pheasant tail buried inside the silvery's mouth. I wanted to see the reaction from the sea run. The demise of the little silvery is highlighted by the swirl on the left-hand side of the screen. I let the trout have the silvery for a couple of seconds before pulling the rod up in the strike. When the trout feels a resistance, it makes a mad 30-metre dash over to the far bank to its cover, which is a deep gut overhang by willow fronds. I was hesitant to plunge into the river and chase the fish across the stream, because I arrived at the spot after the whitebaiters had already set up, so I didn't want to disturb their fishing either, knowing that crashing through the water would most likely spook any whitebait that might be migrating up the river towards their nets. But eventually I had no other option but to follow the fish. The trout had done an exceptional job of wrapping me around some underwater willow branches. As I frantically searched for a way of freeing up the fly line, you can briefly see the fly line trailing straight downstream behind the willows. At this stage I was unaware whether the trout was still attached to my rod or not. I was only fishing 4-pound tippet, so it wouldn't have taken much for the fish to break off. freed the line, I turned downstream to regain the loose line that was now flowing down the river. Incredibly, the fish was still on. I was 3/4 expecting the fish to get off at any moment. I mean, how could you hook a fish on a fish that had already taken a fly, a size 16 pheasant tail, in its mouth? As the fish drew near the shore, it became obvious that it possessed a solid set of shoulders.
What a cracker! What a cracking fish! What a stunker! Bit of condition on that. 6+ pounder.
I quickly set about removing the little hook from the corner of the trout's mouth, with the full intention of releasing the fish to fight for another day. Such a quality trout.
Stuck in its corner of the mouth. He actually took the nymph that I struck and missed. Then I caught a little flipped that out when it's still attached. And he smacked the silver.
At this point, there doesn't seem to be any obvious sign that the fish has suffered any injury during the battle.
There we go.
Sadly, however, and much to my surprise, a large plume of blood pumps from the trout's gill as soon as the fish hits the water. I would feel uncomfortable letting that fish go in such a condition.
Take him.
It was most likely to go under the bank and die a slow death or be predated on by eels, which are common in this river. So I thought, probably better for me to take this fish home.
It's a pity.
It won't go to waste. It's not one intended for the day's trip. However, the odd sea run trout is always welcome at the kitchen table.
Yeah, so that's a bit of a pity. That's such a good fish. Had to be taken. Wasn't planning on taking him. He's about 6 pounds.
Notice how much the fish has dulled up in the short time it's been dispatched.
Leave it, Ralph. Leave it.
My guess is that this was a sea run trout that had been in the river for a few weeks.
Yeah, so
its bulk and condition would testify to that. Also had apricot coloured flesh, which is a bit of a giveaway when it comes to sea run brown trout.
I struck and missed, or else he missed a nymph. One or the other. Then as a fly swung around in the current, a silvery, which is a bait fish about the size of your finger, took my pheasant tail and got hooked, which in itself was pretty unlikely. So I thought, well, let's just see what happens to this wee silvery when he gets flipped out in front of this big brown, sea run brown, because he's in the river feeding on silveries, this fish. Sure enough, he went a long way for it. I mean, the silvery was wounded, and he got under those willows over there. Almost won his freedom, but he just, as they so often do, they just decide to sit tight.